So welcome back to my channel. This is Gamer Dom and time for another rambles from me. So looking at what has been going on in the world of tanks this week. So a couple of interesting stories coming up. Well, I think so anyway. Some new changes to maps. So a couple of the worst maps in my opinion in the game, and going through super tests and some amendments and some changes, neither of which to me look anything particularly impressive. I'm not sure I really addressed the problem with those maps, but anyway, we'll have a look at that. Also, we got some details on the nerfing of an iconic tank in the game, and also some buffs to British assault gun tank destroyers, and also some more controversy wobbling around World of Tanks. Anyway, without further ado, let's get started. So we're starting to get some detail about what the changes are like to the British assault gun tank destroyer line, that's having some mainly buffs, but also one really annoying nerf. So this is the Tortoise leading up to the new FV207, whatever it is, the Death Star line, that as is now. So Wargaming have recognised that this tank line is not the most popular in the game. You don't see many people playing it, and most of them are doing it some kind of self-flagellation, frankly. So this is some of the super test numbers here on the daily bounce. Obviously, since they're super tests, we don't know whether these are final. Just these are what the current values are, and we'll have to wait until probably the test server, probably the second test server, to get a good idea about whether any of these change. But the AT-15 pile of doo-doo that is the tier 8, pretty much the only tank I've ever free XP'd right the way through. They are going to increase its frontal upper hull armour from 127 to 139.7, so that's pretty welcome. The frontal superstructure upper border armour changes from 228 to 152, so that's a serious nerf. So where is that? Is that up around here? I think this bit up around the top here. Frontal roof area changed from 76.2 to 114, so that's welcome. Machine gun cupola changed from 127 to a range between 127 and 228. Now that's fairly significant. And that and the commander's cupola have gone from 127 to 152. Now these two cupolas were always the weak spot, and this is one of the things about this tank, this line, is that they're consistently weak in the commander's hatch and this other, well, they're calling it machine gun cupola, but anyway, whatever. It's going to have a bit of a buff. Still, the commander's thing, 152, is not that fantastic, but it's gone up a bit, so it's not quite as weak as it once was. But you're getting extra superstructure armour as well on this thing. So, yeah, we'll have to see. The Tortoise at tier 9, again, lots of changes here. Fiddling around with the 32-pounder gun, so reload time will go from 5 seconds to 5.6, so that will affect its DPM a little bit. Damage change from 250 to 280, so that brings it back. So basically you're getting a slower gun but more alpha, which I think is probably a good thing. And penetration is also increasing from 214 to 222 for a standard round, which is also welcome. I like the Tortoise. I think it's a good little tank, so this is going to be interesting. They're also increasing the frontal lower armor plate armor from 228 to 273, and the upper plate from 57 to 101. So that's this panel here, I think, which is really well sloped. So unless you're firing down on it, it was never that easy to pen, but yeah, that's good. Frontal superstructure lower right side changed from 150 to 190. So where's that? I guess that's here, this bit here. Machine gun port changed from 228 to 278, so I think that's the bit over here, isn't it? There's a machine gun over here somewhere, which I think that's that one. Superstructure left side changed from 171 to 215. Oh no, that's here. Okay, so basically a lot of this frontal area has been strengthened considerably. The roof has gone up from 25 to 57, so on the face of it not much, but 25 can be overmatched very, very easily 57 not so much. So unless you're firing directly down on it, you'll probably get ricochets now. The machine gun cupola, like on the tier 8, is being strengthened, 171 to 273, but there's still 171 weak spot there, but it's very, very small. And the commander's cupola has gone up a whacking 200 from 127 to 215. So that's a really big boost to the for the frontal armor of this thing. So the Tortoise I thought was always quite a competitive tank, but could be penned if people knew where to shoot it. A lot of those weak spots have gone now. So if this patch goes ahead as advertised. So moving on to some of the other British assault gun changes, and the first one really upsets me. I think it's very, very sad. This is the iconic, I think I'll say that, I will say AT2, the tier 5 British assault gun tank destroyer. So what to say about this thing? This thing is renowned for having ridiculously thick frontal armor. In fact, the armor on this AT2 doesn't change through the next two upgrades. So you basically got a tier 5 tank which has same armor as the tier 7 variant at the front anyway. And that was kind of okay because it was balanced, because the commander's hatch is a big festering sore that is easy to pen from pretty much anywhere if you know what you're doing. Now, the biggest challenge down at tier 5 is there's a lot of players who don't know what they're doing. And if this thing became top tier, you could have some monumentally good games. The problem with it is obviously it's a tier 5, which means you see tier 7s, and tier 7s go through it. 200mm of armor isn't that much of a big deal, especially if they hit the 2 key. So, you know, I always find the AT2 was one of those tanks where you could have 2 or 3 absolutely shite games because it's incredibly slow, has a very weak gun, fires rapidly but very low alpha. And if you came up against somebody who knew what they were doing and just shot you in the cupola time and time again, or just hit the 2 key and penned you, you'd have absolute shit games. But then every so often you'd have an absolute monster, which made the thing a joy to play. And one of the reasons why I've kept this tank. And plan to keep it forever, but I have to say with these changes I'm probably going to get rid of it because they're removing all the frontal armor off it, and I don't really understand the logic to this, because to me this tank is not overpowered. It can be a really tough nut to deal with, but it's not that difficult really. So frontal armor, they're super testing at the moment, dropping from its 203mm to 152, which I think is a massive change. The turret armor will go from 139 to 114. Frontal turret cheek armor from 152 to 101.6, and more layers added, whatever that means. And the frontal upper plate from 76 to 63. So whichever way you look at it, and then side armor 101 to 76.2. So whichever way you look at it, this is a serious nerf. Absolutely real nerf to an iconic tank. And I don't know what they're doing at the moment, just seem to be determined to take down all the iconic tanks out of the game. You've got the Death Stars going in the same patch. You've got, the changes to various other tanks along the way. It just seems like the kind of character tanks are being removed from the game. Now you could say novelty tanks maybe, and maybe you're right, but that's kind of one of the fun things about the game, I think, is having these novelty tanks where you had to learn how to play them and learn how to deal with them. And it seems like Wargaming are pandering to the great unwashed who can't be bothered. He'll just hit the 2 key, whatever happens, and go off and, rather than actually learn where your weak spots are and how to take down tanks. I don't know. Love to know your opinion down below. The gun mantle spaced armor changed from 101.6 to 152, so that will go up. So better gun mantle, but that's a small area. Track skirt spaced armor changed from 76 to 25, so that's another big nerf. Rear upper armor changed from 50 to 38. Rear lower armor from 76 to 50, and rear turret and commander's cupola from 101 to 50. I mean, this thing is just going to be easy. It's going to be roadkill, basically. I can't see the point of playing that tank. I'm certainly selling mine if this change goes through. The 88, the tier 6, this is getting a bit of a much needed love because I think this one was quite a weak tank. Left side armor goes from 50 to 101, which is great. Frontal armor at the machine gun port changed from 76 to 203, and several other layers added or increased. Commander's cupola front armor changed from 101 to 152. Commander's cupola rear armor changed from 101 to 76. So that makes more sense. It's harder to pen it from the front than it is from the back. Machine gun cupola armor changed from 127 to 203. So that is no longer a weak spot, really. So I don't understand the logic of that. They've nerfed the 82, but buffed the 88 like crazy. I know this thing will see tier 8 games, but hey. Gun mantle's spaced armor changed from 101 to 203. Again, a bit like the 82 is getting a big buff there. Rear top engine armor changed from 101 to 76, so more susceptible to artillery than previously. 87 tier 7, again similar kind of buffs really. Frontal armor layout changed with the introduction of several layers between 127 to 203. Machine gun armor, frontal armor 76, weak spot removed, and armor increased to 190 to 203. So it won't have any weak spots at the front anymore. Machine gun cupola is increased in line with the previous tier from 101 to 203. Commander's cupola at the front will go up to 203. From the rear it will drop to 76. The frontal roof armor changed from 76 to 88. So this is this sort of bit here. This yellow bit here has gone up. Gun mantle spaced armor changed from 101 to 203, again the same as the previous versions. And the rear armor changed from 63.5 to 76.2 to 101.6. So they're actually increasing the rear armor on this thing. It seems, is it me? That just seems really weird. So you're nerfing the bejesus out the 82, you're then buffing like crazy in the next two tiers, and the 87 at tier 7 is getting better rear armor than anything else. All the others have been nerfed in the rear. Just the logic escapes me. I'd love to know what you think. Let me know what you think about what they're doing to these British TDs. I'm disappointed by the 82. I think the changes to the other two are probably needed. They're very weak compared to the kind of other TDs you get out there. But they won't change drastically because they've still got that fairly basic gun. But armor-wise, yeah, they're going to be able to do a little bit more with the gold spamming that goes on. So, for the third time, an update on the personal mission saga. So, remember, since the mini patch they put in after 9.20.1, personal missions stopped working, as did chat, actually, off and on. There's also been quite a few sound issues, from what I can gather. Certainly I've suffered them. Anyway, they were going to give us compensation for the personal missions being down, which is basically one of those things that allows you to skip one of the missions, and also a free female crew member. So basically the female crew members, as you will know, they get a Sisterhood of Steel perk already embedded on them, which basically will now match with Brothers in Arms, which is good. And they also traditionally have 100% of a first skill that you can basically appoint, so you can determine which nation you want it to be, what type of whether you want it to be commander, gunner, what have you, and also then set the first skill. Now when they first introduced this, another fail from Wargaming, good on you, well done, give a bit of compensation to say sorry we screwed up, and then screw it up. So when it first appeared and you went in and got your female, it only came up with the Sisterhood Steel and not the first skill, which is a little bit annoying, certainly when I unlocked her. And all you have to do is go into the game. You have to log into the game, and it comes up straight away saying available or something, and you basically then choose which nation you want her from, what class of vehicle, and then what vehicle you want her to be in. and then once you've got her, then the skills that you're going to put on her. So when I first got her, all I got was Sisterhood of Steel and nothing else. However, when I went back in later in the day, they'd corrected it, and she then had 100% of the first skill. So I gave her, in my case, I made her the commander of my French heavy tanks. I gave her Sixth Sense, and she already had obviously Sisterhood of Steel, so that's great. So I've got a 2-skill commander on my French heavy tanks for when the new tech line comes through. So watch out for that. It should be there, should be in your garage. Just have to log in. As I think the only criteria was that you have to have logged on to the game before the release of patch 9.20.1 and to have a tier 4 tank or higher. And then you will get a free lady driver or whatever you want, lady commander, whatever you want, with effectively 2 free skills, which is not to be sneezed at. And you will also get the whatever it's called, the order thing that allows you to skip a mission. So all good stuff. So good thing. Thank you, Wargame. Okay, so they're continuing to look at some of the maps that are in the game. So Erlenberg is the first one they're looking at again in Super Test, and God knows this map needs some work. It's just so imbalanced, particularly on the assault games, in my view. So doesn't actually look like they've done a huge amount other than cosmetic. Now bear in mind this is all the super tests, so who knows what will actually transpire, but this is what Erlenberg there will look like if the super test goes through. It's a winter scene, so that's the first thing to spot. It's not what is it, spring I think in the game at the moment, so this is a winter map, obviously with snow everywhere. They've increased the amount of buildings down the riverside, down the centre of the map. Rest of it, I mean, apart from looking quite pretty, doesn't actually look like they've done a huge amount to it. And it does look pretty, to be fair. There's also a railway line leading down the open, sort of the, what is it, 90 line. But they're pretty pretty. So here's some still shots of Erlenberg. You can see this doesn't. There was buildings here, wasn't there? I think this is the river down here. So much more open than it once was. You can see, yeah, they've removed buildings down here, put more buildings all the way down this side, but they've also taken away all the buildings on this side. Seems a bit odd. The railway line running down there, not that that makes any difference to the map itself, but fundamentally for me the problem is where the caps are. It would actually be in some ways a better map if the cap was there and here, and you were having to at least have an opportunity if you're in this cap. Well, you'd have a choice really, wouldn't you, whether you go that way. Well, you still have the choice of going that way or that way, but what I mean is at the moment with where the position of the caps are, if you're defending this side, you're better off just stacking all your tanks on this side. If the cap's over here, you've got to make a decision to come down here and come out here, because otherwise there's 2 routes in, viable routes in. I don't know. Not convinced. I'm not convinced that either that this change has really made any significant difference to the map, but we shall see. Also, this is super test, so it may never see the light of day. But that isn't all. They've also messed around with fjords. So again, go through super test at the moment, a new look fjords map. Now again, I don't think they've addressed the fundamental problem with this map. And that is, to my mind, it's not really suitable for lights and tank destroyers. It's really only mediums and heavies that have fun on this map. But what they seem to have done is cleared a lot of the central area. This village down the bottom, bound by the edge of the fjords itself, is definitely more built up. This is the middle area. I mean, it looks very, very pretty. I'll give them that. It certainly looks pretty, but is it any better for gameplay? I don't know. I don't know, I'm not convinced. So you can see the central area is much more open than it once was. So here we go, some still shots of fjords. Can't really see very much difference on this one, but this one you can see all the changes. All this area in the middle here has been opened out, so even less positions for TDs and less really for light tanks, because this is just going to be a bloodbath area here, I would have thought. I mean, I guess you've still got the ramp. This is still quite slopey here, so any tanks right back here are not going to see anything until it comes up over the crest. Likewise, anything back here is not really going to see anything until you get over here. So to me, this map has actually just reduced the surface area that you're actually going to play in, because at least now there is some opportunity for tanks to get to here and to here, whereas this, can't see that happening myself. Don't like that map at all. But let me know what you think down below. Love to get your opinion. So you gotta love the World of Tanks community. They're such a positive, happy bunch. So the March of Nations mission thing has begun. So you'll remember from last week, you have to join these this mission. It is basically for tier 7, 8, 9 and 10 tanks, and you'll get spots on the leaderboard, which will eventually earn you various things like boosters, and if you're in the top 1,000 you get special badges and all this kind of good stuff. So you know, it's something for fun. It's nothing serious. You're not going to get a huge amount out of it, but it's, you know, it's no skin off your nose to do, because you might as well sign up. It automatically registers for you the games that qualify, and it's something like your top 5 base XP games in solo play in random battles that count towards the charts and the final selection by the 22nd of November is when it runs out. Will give you these special one-off badges. Now the issue around this, which is causing a lot of angst and gnashing of teeth and so forth, is the fact that the prizes, inverted commas, vary considerably across the servers. Now in EU, I think I showed you before, something like the first 1,000 get, you know, it's not many, it's a couple of thousand people will get something of any significance, and there's not much to them. There's these special badges, which I guess for those who love that kind of thing will allow them to show off that they're the best in the best of the bunch, which is good for them. You get some various boosters, and you get a couple of days of extra premium time, which is nice. It's free, it's easy, you're playing the game anyway, so what's the big problem? Now what is annoying a lot of people is that on the Russian server, the number of people who earn these things is considerably higher. Something like, and I haven't got the numbers to hand exactly, but if it's 1,000 on the EU, it's something like 3,000 in Russia. Now they get the same kind of bonuses, same kind of win things, so I actually don't see this as being a big issue to me, because there's a lot more players in Russia. This is where the game is its strongest. There are millions of players in Russia compared to the EU, so you know, having more prizes, more winning slots makes sense, because as a proportion of the player base it's probably about the same, so it doesn't bother me in the slightest. But the one that is pissing off a lot of people, and I sort of get it but I sort of don't, is the North American server. So you guys in North America, if you finish in the top whatever it is, you qualify for a premium tier 8 premium tank. So none of this, you know, piddling around with a couple of crew booster badges and you know, 3 days of premium. You can get a tier 8 premium, which is pretty good prize. Now that's pissing off a lot of people, and particularly bizarrely the Polish community. I don't know if it's because, you know, the Polish community is quite an active one in World of Tanks, and because they kind of see what's happening in Russia and they see what's happening in North America, they're crying about it. So apparently there's been a big boycott going on with the Polish community. They are refusing to join this March of Nations thing because of the unfairness of the prizes. And it's been supported by a number of community contributors apparently, because they also think it is wrong. Now as I say, I partly agree and partly disagree. I think I've always found that it annoys me that there isn't more consistency between the different servers. However, I get it. With North America, they are trying desperately to break into the North American market to keep the players they've got and attract new ones. And you've already seen they had to merge servers because there just wasn't enough player population. And this game has not been as successful as it is in Europe, and particularly in Russia, in America. So they've got to do something. It's standard marketing. It's not that difficult. If you're trying to attract people, you do something to attract people, and that's what they're doing. So I kind of get that. However, it also pisses me off as a player on the E server. I wish I could win something decent rather than just a couple of badges. But then again, it is free. This is not something we're paying for. This is something that if you're playing the game, you just click that, join the mission, whatever it was, button, and you subscribe to it, and you don't do any more. You just play your games like you would normally do, and it does it all for you. So at the end of the month, you may or may not get some little bonus for it. You may not be able to show off to all the rest of the players that you are the king god on tier 7 or whatever. Yeah, it's pissing off a lot of people, and it just always amazes me with World of Tanks just how vitriolic and nasty and ungrateful players are. At the end of the day, this is a game. It's a business. The World of Tanks is a business. They try and make money. I know, Shock Horror Pro, and they're not going to give away stuff that they can sell for free in an area where they're kind of doing all right. So why would you go to EU and say, here's a whole load of tier 8s for you to win, when the numbers are pretty good in EU? Whereas North America, the numbers are not good, not where they want them to be. You're going to give away stuff to encourage people to play the game. It's just marketing. That's just the way it works. But you're still getting something free. It's not like you're paying for this. You're getting you're just signing up for free and playing your games as you normally would. It's nothing special. It's not like a tournament or anything like that. This is just, you play the game, for an hour twice a week or something, and it automatically registers your games for this competition if you signed in. So yeah, I don't know. Let me know what you think. I mean, I do agree though. The one thing I do agree is the lack of consistency in the servers, and the lack of the understanding there is across different servers. And I think that's something Wargaming could do a lot more to address somehow. So there's a bit more consistency. However, I agree, that they need to be able to put their marketing budget into the areas they need to attract new. Okay, so my continuing look at Tier 8 matchmaking. Since patch 9.20.1, hey, I said it right. As of when I did this update, I'd done 233 games. So this is only Tier 8 solo random battles, just to get that clear. All the different variants of that, so encounters and straight battles and assaults and that stuff. But the point was random Tier 8 games. So of the 233 games, I got into Tier 10 games 102 times, which is 43.8, which is pretty much, in fact, is identical to what it was when I did the same thing a couple of weeks ago. Tier 9 games, however, gone up slightly. It's now 77 games to 33% of the time. So a third of my games were Tier 9s, and 23.2 were Tier 8. That's not quite the whole story if we look at the individual breakdowns. So of the Tier 9s, so roughly half, it was pretty even split between half being a game where you were in a 3-5-7, so basically you were the middle tier, and then half where you were in a 5-10 game, so there were 5 Tier 9s and 10 Tier 8s. So pretty consistent. But if you look at the Tier 8, actually not too bad. 12.9% of the time you were in the Chosen 3. 8.6% of the time it was an all Tier 8 game, and only 1.7% was one of the games where there's 5 Tier 8s and 10 Tier 7s. So that's actually held up pretty consistent. Is I think the tier 9 level has gone up a little bit, but it's not too bad. But yeah, it's funny because I'd been feeling, my gut feel was that I was getting more tier 10s. So it just shows how your brain sort of deceives you sometimes with these things. But yeah, still, it's exactly the same as it was last time. 43.8% of the time a tier 10 game, so less than half. Now you could argue, it's half too many because you're bottom tier. But then, just statistically, there's only going to be 3 top tiers. There's more tier 8s in a tier 10 game if it's a tier 10 that features tier 8s, if you see what I mean. So yeah, it's inevitable, I guess. But yeah, interesting. I'd love to know what you're finding. You matching up to this sort of expectation. A third of the time tier 9, 23% tier 8, and 43.8% tier 10s. Love to know what you think. Let me know as ever down below. I don't know what's going on at Wargaming this month, but they're definitely not having one of their finer moments in terms of coding and everything else. So, quick update on the Halloween tanks, those 2 special game mode tanks that were in our garage. They're still there, and apparently, according to the post on the Russian forum, they will remain there until the next patch comes in, 9.21. So, yeah, something's gone wrong. The little gremlins in Minsk have fallen over, and they can't manage to remove them from our tech trees. So you can just hide them. There is the thing to put them into storage or whatever, reserve or something. I can't remember what it's called, but and then they will eventually be removed. Now you're not keeping the crews, even if you wanted to. That was what they said at the beginning, but I think any equipment that's on it will be transferred back to your depot. Anyway, there you go. Just a little. So, anyway, I hope you find all that interesting and helpful. Let me know your thoughts and what you feel about some of the changes, some of the suggestions, some of the thoughts that are going on around the game. Love to get your opinion. And thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, give it a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. In the meantime, enjoy your games, have fun, try not to take it too seriously. This is Gamer Dom, signing out.